Folks, thank you for inviting me to talk to you on this very important issue. If you were to ask my wife, she would tell you that I'm the biggest oppressor at home. So it's a matter of debate that we always have at home. And of course, she's in the minority. I've got two sons. And we have a small female cat. And sadly, the cat gets precedence over everybody else in the house, including me. So that shows gender equality at work. I think Mao Tse-tung made a right statement when he said, "Women hold up half the sky." And I think that single statement meant that 20% of humanity's future was changed after the communist takeover in 1949. So if you look at China as an emerging market or developed country or whatever it is, the Chinese understood women power. The communist regime made women equal partners in society. And that's one of the reasons why China has grown at 9.9% a year for the last 30 years. Because when you create equal opportunities, when you allow 50% of your workforce to come into the mainstream and become productive in the economic area, you give a big boost to your economic growth. And double income in a family, empowerment of women, education of the girl child determines the future of society. And I think China, despite its communist regime, is a standing example. And I don't find any other country in the world, apart from China, which has done it to such a remarkable extent. I think we ought to study China. Even the United States is very poor. Western Europe is very poor in this. Africa is poor. Cuba seems to have done very well. Once again, a communist regime. So I don't know what is in communism that makes this happen in these countries. Of course, Indian communism is very poor in women empowerment. Despite ruling West Bengal for 30 years, I don't think they've done much. Kerala is a very different country because, I call it a country, because they have a matriarchal system. And the social structure itself empowers women, though I don't see great leaders in the communist movement in Kerala. So I want to set the context by saying it makes economic sense for women to be empowered, apart from all the social things that come by with women's empowerment. And of course, society is undergoing a power struggle. My view is that many things in life is a matter of the power equation and the power struggle within society. And the power struggle always implies that the girl child and the female has to play a subordinate role. And that carries on in traditional societies, unless you come to a stage when women get educated. And when women get educated and they understand what their status is and how they could be empowered, you find a very different person emerging, almost like a butterfly from a cocoon. So, in corporate organizations, especially in Infosys where I worked, we did have this kind of challenge. When I started my career in Infosys in 1994, Murthy always used to speak about making sure that women had a special place. And we had, of course, Hema as the HR head, and she was a bit of a terror those days. She used to go to Murthy and tell him that we got to increase salaries every quarter, others people will run away. And she used to terrify Murthy, and terrifying Murthys take some guts. So he used to talk about women getting a special place and special facilities, and I used to fight with him. And I used to tell him that everybody should be treated equally. And it's very essential that women get treated equally. But over a period of time, I understood very clearly, personally, that when people are inherently unequal in many aspects, equality is a chimera. It cannot exist. And unless you bring people to an equal plane, and remove the disabilities they suffer for various reasons, you cannot have a policy of equality. So you need to have special policies. And that's the reason why we have reservation in our society. We have a differential treatment for the so-called backward class and all of the social groups. And the logic is very sound. It's difficult to understand the logic unless you are at the bottom of the pyramid and you feel suppressed. I felt this in the racial sense when I went to Germany. Every time I go to the US, transit to Frankfurt, I get treated shabbily in Frankfurt airport. They seem to have a special fascination for me. I remember that you go to the lounge, and they look at you, the woman there sits and looks at you and treats you very differently. And the service staff, unless they're from Turkey, look at you strangely. You're put into a corner. I remember coming out from a flight in Munich once, and one plainclothes man came and asked me for my passport. And I showed him the passport. Then I asked, after he gave it back, I asked him, why are you asking for a passport? I said, are you asking me because I'm brown? I'm not white? I said, you're very racist. And he was, of course, going back and saying, no, 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 I'm just asking, I'm asking this. I said, why didn't you ask all these white people? And then we went for a holiday in Germany. We experienced it in a museum when my wife got treated shabbily, and I wrote a complaint to them and called them a racist on the face. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this that only because only if you undergo certain kind of discrimination, you understand what it means. And for many of us who come to this place and talk about it, we don't understand it. So you've got to understand it, to experience it, to state the obvious. Now, when I was the CFO, I did try in many ways to make sure that we had much more inclusive policies, even though I was categorized as enemy number one by HR. So when I became the director for HR, I worked with Nandita, who was the HR head, to look at issues about our women workforce, because we realized 40% of the incoming batch in Mysore for training were young women. And they were a very large part of the workforce. And the attrition for women was about 2 or 3% higher. And we discovered that attrition for North Indians was higher, South Indians were lower. So we made a lot of analytics. So I brought with me the financial rigor and analytics to find out the source of this problem, because whatever we may come and talk here, we need analytics in the organization to come out with solutions. We need data, and we got to do a lot of analysis to understand causes and to come out with everything else. So when you find out the reasons for high attrition, and we tried to go into the causes, we found there are multiple causes. One was there's a bias against women when it came to promotion. Women were less promoted than men. And of course, the managers were largely men in technology because it is a young industry, and there was a bias. Second, we found that young women who had babies came back only 50%, 55% after maternity. Only 55%. And that's another challenge. And third, when it came to the appraisal, in the top tier, they didn't have a proper representation. And when it came to going abroad for work, of course, there was a slight discrimination. So we tried to attack it on multiple points. I'm sure Aruna will talk about many things that they do, but I'll only talk about the top aspects, Aruna, so I won't take away thunder. So what we did was we said in the first instance that when we look at promotions, we're going to see proportions of women in that category and make sure there's a normal distribution. And the fact that somebody is going to review sent a message to everybody, and there was, I think, a big improvement. And the second problem that we had was that we made sure that when it came to promotion and appraisal, the same methodology is followed. When it came to maternity, we set in place certain policies. We said the period of maternity is work, so you don't get discriminated for promotion, because promotion takes place every 3 years. So if you go on maternity, that is work, that is not leave. Because people used to say, oh, this person has worked 12 months, this person has worked 6 months, so how can you equate, and how can you make a performance, blah, blah, blah. So we said this is leave. I mean, this is work, not leave. And that settled one problem. And second, of course, we gave a 2-year sabbatical. We said you can go for a 2-year sabbatical, because rearing up a young child without family support is extremely difficult. And the males, as males are, do ignore the family after they have the child. And that's a normal thing. I mean, we got to fight that, of course. I'm all with you in fighting. I don't have the problem anymore anyway. Somebody's problem, so it's okay. So we said that we're going to give a 2-year sabbatical, and we're going to create creches outside near homes. And then we're going to make sure that you have a mentoring group, you have somebody to talk to, and we also made sure that we set up city offices somewhere for women to come, and the percentage went up from 55 to 85%. And then we had challenges in the top ranks. The challenges were mostly because we were a young industry which has gone up very fast, and we had about 40% in the incoming batches. Now I'm told it's 60%, Aruna, and 60% remarkable. We need reservation for men at the entry level. I think too much, 60% is too much. And of course, HR, they're 85% women. So the blatant discrimination against men in HR. I don't know what it is now. So when we made sure that all these policies had a implication, and when they went up the ranks from 40% as 24% and 8% at the top. So in the board, we fought and brought in women representation. And sadly, a woman coming on the board is treated like a woman. And that's a shame. The woman is not treated like a person, as an individual, but treated like a woman. There's a certain kind of attitude in boards in India. Boards in India are patriarchal, old boy networks. It's true. It's very much true. The Institute of Public Enterprise in Hyderabad made a study that 8% board members, out of which 2% are family members. So in the senior position, they were less, but we tried to push up people in the senior position and went out of the way, and now I think it's improving. It's all a question of how long people stay. So you have a problem at the board level. And we also had this problem, and I remember many fights at the board when I said that we must get women, and I was told, show me the women and we'll get them, and I had to give names and all that. They always come in this argument, show me this woman. Where are these women? And it's true there are not many women. Not that the men are good themselves. Many of them are cronies on Indian boards. Many of them have stayed on for 20, 25 years. I don't think they contribute. So the sad reality. So what we did, I worked with Poonam Barua, who runs a program called Women in Leadership for many years. Very remarkable woman. I think she's done a tremendous amount of work. We wrote to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs and said we want women on the board by law. And we pitched our demand at 40%. And of course, they shook up the government, and they came out with the law now in the Companies Act, where you need to have a woman member. I'm the chairman of the Primary Markets Committee of SEBI, and we recently passed a rule which said we need an independent woman member. Because when you have a business organization dominated by families in this country, we didn't want a family member to come there just because we need a woman. We want an independent woman member. I thought it got diluted because they told me that they wanted women to come up in executive positions. So I think we need to fight for this. And Scandinavia has tackled this by saying, I think, by law, they need to have 40% women or something like that. So I think there is an upsurge economically because people understand that we need more women in the workforce. There is an upsurge in understanding, and you see all this understanding in the IT industry, which is very global, because you speak about these issues, you talk about these issues in financial services, very global, you talk about these issues, but it needs to cascade down to other industries, and mostly the traditional industries, where women are treated like chattel or beasts of burden. In fact, just yesterday, I was on a TV channel with CNBC with Lata Venkatesh, and they were asking me about Modi's economic policies, and I think he gave a good speech yesterday. But then I made a point. Look, Modi spoke about women empowerment and spoke about women running the milk industry in Gujarat and becoming entrepreneurs, and women running Lajat Papad, and running that, and Jasubain's Pizza. But I said these are not the role models for young women. Kiran Shah is a role model. I do wish he speaks about that. I said on TV that he's very patriarchal and he's in the traditional mode. He needs to change his dialogue. And of course, they cut me off on TV, and in the night I got so many people abusing me on Twitter and saying you're wrong and all that. But you see, it shows the attitude in the political leadership, which is one of benevolence, and a very traditional thing. Women are working in the workforce, hum bhi kar rahe, milk industry, they're all looking after animal husbandry, they're looking after agriculture. In agriculture, a very large number of women are working. They become beasts of burden. Because the men go away, leaving the family and emigrate, and the woman is left with a child. She's left with all the liabilities, and this guy is gone after doing whatever work he does in the family. So you have a big challenge there. So you need this thing. So I think the idea is that we need to stand up, we need to talk, and we need to say that every individual, treat it not, in my view, like a woman issue, to say every individual to be given the rights guaranteed by the Constitution. And the Constitution is the document that we need to fight for. Because the Constitution promises equality, gender balance, and no discrimination. And that's the document which is our right, and nobody can take it away. Nobody can take it away. And we can go to court and get it done. So I think it's very important. You saw this kind of patriarchal attitude in the Supreme Court in that intern case. You saw what Arun Tejpal did. You saw the dialogue after Arun Tejpal. The girl is bad, this guy is a saint, he didn't do anything, he was induced or whatever it is, and the poor girl was so scared. There was a domination of the girl. We went through a sexual harassment case in Infosys. We didn't understand what this was, what the issue of sexual harassment was, because we're all men, we don't get harassed, so we don't understand it. We set up this policy after the Vishaka case, because I went to the board and insisted that we must have this case, and it took some time to get it done. And we had a case, we had an independent member, we had a Supriti come in as the chair, and she was very independent. And first we had somebody from IIM, then Supriti came in, and Supriti did a great job. She's in the law school. She did a great job. And then we had an independent committee. We set up committees everywhere. So it used to work. Till we are just confronted with this issue of Fanish Murthy. And it was shocking. I mean, it hit you home. It hit us home because, look, we were built in a different manner. I mean, it was something that we never thought of. Many of us never thought of harassing a woman in the office. We never thought of it. We're rather keeping away because, we didn't want to have any challenges. So, Fanish Murthy, and Murthy decided in 2 minutes he has to go. And that's the first big case. Sadly, that guy did it again. I think he's got some problem. But that case set the trend everywhere to say that there shall be no harassment. In Infosys, we have a zero policy for sexual harassment, a zero tolerance policy. Zero tolerance. I hope you're still working, Aruna. It's a zero tolerance policy. And that set the trend against this. So I think there are many things to be done in this. Now, you have the law on one hand against discrimination. You have good companies doing policies. But I think more needs to be done. And let me try to put before you what needs to be done, because we can go after government, we can change policies, but I think you need parallel movements. The most important thing that we need to do is to have women, accomplished women as role models. You have to fire the imagination of young girls. Kalpana Chawla was a role model. It fired the imagination of many young girls all over. So we need to find these very accomplished women leaders, like a Kiran Shah, like a, Naina Kidwai, like a, Shikha Sharma, and Indira Nui. I mean, Indira is outside, she's American, so let's forget about her. We need people who can go about. So we need women leaders, even a Jayalalitha, even a Mamta Banerjee, even a Mayawati, a Vasundhara Raje. What is that? No, they're accomplished people. You see, they all fought against discrimination and they come up on their own. Please don't rubbish them. You may not like the policies, it's fine. You may disagree with many of them. But as women, what they have gone through is terrible. I mean, if you read Jayalalitha's life story, what she's gone through and how she's been treated, I mean, there cannot be a worse statement for any human being anywhere in this world. So we got to respect them. They accomplished that despite everything against them. Read the story of Mayawati. You may not like what she does. That's because we are brought up in a particular way. But Mayawati for Dalit woman is a great source of inspiration. Single-handedly, she raised the aspiration. So we need to have role models, and these role models should spend 15-20% of the time talking to young girls, going across society, and putting the thought in the mind that they have a life of their own, and they must get educated, and they can succeed. Because the battle is in the mind. One side is societal discrimination, but the greater battle is the mind of young girls, because they must not give up. They must seek their place in the sun, and they must fight for what they believe is right. Malala fought for what she was right. She's a courageous girl. So we need many more of this. And many more examples come up. They'll become political leaders. They'll rise up in companies. They'll talk back and tell people you're wrong. And they'll become role models, and then it becomes a great movement. I think that's a very important thing. Second thing that we need to do, especially in the corporate sector, is help create an ecosystem to support women in business. And the ecosystem to support women in business has many things. One, we have to create businesses which meet their needs. And one important need is a creche. We need many women entrepreneurs to come forward to create creches in many parts of many cities to make sure they create the necessary support system for young women. I discovered this when I spoke to a company which we have funded through the Unitas Seed Fund. We made investment in a Unitas Seed Fund with the Social Venture Fund. And Umesh Malhotra is running a company called Hippo Campus. What he's doing now is starting preschool in many villages. And his preschool has some 200, 300 kids. And he's got some 3,500 or 4,000 kids. And I asked him, how's it going? He said, going well. I said, who is coming? He said, young mothers are coming. And what are they doing? They're paying 300 rupees, leaving the kid there, a 2-year-old child. Of course, they teach them English and all the nice things so they, get a break in life. And they go to work. Now, just understand this important thing. Just because there's a creche and you can leave the child there, the mother becomes much more economically productive. And when you become economically productive and bring money home, you're a very different person. We did an experiment in Gulbarga many years ago. We gave 2,000 sewing machines to women. All right? Sewing machines cost them 800 rupees, 1,000 rupees. And we found after 1 year some remarkable things. Women who've been thrown out of the house called back, women getting more respect from their husbands. Suddenly they're becoming more confident. And suddenly there's a change in attitude. A small thing like a sewing machine. Because they could sit and sew clothes. And then it made a remarkable transformation because they were getting economically independent. And that makes a lot of difference. Even earning 500 rupees a month, 1,000 rupees a month on your own for a woman is fantastic. So I think we need to create this kind of a support system. Now you could ask your employer to do it. You could ask government to do it, but that's not going to work unless we create multiplicity of this. Second, we need preschools, many more preschools. Because today, a child is a big investment. I think most people don't have children or have lesser children because they understand it's very expensive to have a child in a city. When we were kids, we paid 2 rupees fees. We, grew up in the streets. We drank municipal water. We went and played. And, mothers looked after us. They made sure we studied. And we grew up. We went to college. And we hardly paid anything. Now a kid, the moment the kid is born, within 2 years, play school, this school, that school, it costs 1 lakh, 1.5 lakhs for a play school, right? After that, preschool costs a bomb. Play school and preschool costs more than college education. So it becomes expensive. So the business opportunity to create preschool, that creates a support system. And next, I would like to ask all of you to join together, create an angel fund to promote women entrepreneurs. I'm willing to contribute. Create an angel fund to fund women entrepreneurs, give them capital to do their businesses, and create mentoring for them to do business. Because if you have more women entrepreneurs coming up from the bottom, doing whatever they do, let's not ask what they do, it's okay. Whatever they want to do, they can do. For a period of time, we'll see them coming up in many, many fast society. Even Jasubai's pizza is okay. Whatever they want to do, they should do. Because it empowers them, they become role models, and there's a very big multiplier impact. And the multiplier impact has to spend. Because we focus on advocacy, we go to corporates and we tell them you must do this, but they're a very small part of this country. The multiplier effect and the impact only comes with women becoming entrepreneurs, being seen as leaders in their own right, and that entrepreneurship, spreading across as a very vast group. You're seeing the women, women in workforce at 24%. It's come down from some 34% of the years, because I think when the wages go up, the woman stops going to work in rural areas and stays at home to look after the family or possibly do something else. It may be good, it may be bad, that's debatable, but whatever it is. So we have to create this kind of an entrepreneurial thing, and hopefully it will cascade down to many things, and these are something that has to be done. And for that, we need women in leadership. It's very good of you to come here, sit down, have a conference and talk, and then go back and keep doing what you're doing and spend time on your own lives. At the end of this conference, you must take a pledge. You'll spend 20% of your time doing things for others because you are very fortunate. I'm very fortunate. I spend 30-40% of my time on social issues now. I gave up my career because I feel that if you don't improve the ecosystem, you're not going to live a better world than the world that you enter. And it's very essential to do that because you got a lot of stuff because somebody else struggled before you. And you have an obligation to struggle to do something else for somebody directly or indirectly. And just by coming to conferences, making research reports, which are very good, and talking about it, you're going to make a change, but the change is going to be very slow. We need radical change. In the next 10 years, we have to change this country. And the only way to change this country is to come through, capture the popular imagination, and do many things. If you look at colleges today, 40% of the batch in engineering colleges are girls. 40%. In another 5 years, it'll be 50%. You know that? Remarkable. In medical schools, 60% are women. Remarkable. So there is an upsurge of women who are going to come. And if you go to any state, women are staying much more in schools than otherwise, than boys. We made a study in Akshay Patra in some states where we have a midday meal. We've been doing it for 12 years. and we found a remarkable thing. A girl child's height and weight has improved much faster, much better than the boy over a period of 10 years. And you know why? Because you give the meal, the child comes, the child eats, and the child stays in school. The boys, being rowdy elements, being naughty or whatever it is, they bunk classes, they go outside, they don't come to class, they come unoften, eat junk food. But the girl eats the food well, and she's nutritious, and their health indices are improved much better than anybody else. So you're seeing all these springs coming up in this country, and these have to be captured, these have to be canalized, and we need policy changes. I was a member of the Knowledge Commission in Karnataka. So when I was speaking to the Vice Chancellor of the Women's University and asking her, why are you starting this Women's University? It's anachronism in this modern age, Women's University, only for women, you must have co-ed schools. Then she told me, you are out of date. I said, why? He said, you come with me to northern Karnataka. Families are traditional. Parents will not send the girl to a co-ed college. They will not send her. They'll keep her at home. So by opening these colleges, we are, educating women. Then understood the significance, we don't want it. And then in the Knowledge Commission, when he said, we got to recommend more women colleges, everything, the women protested, you are discriminating against women, you are coming in the way, this is not the way, blah, blah, blah. But we insisted and got it done. And the last budget, we got another 15, 20 colleges open for women. So how do you get these insights? While on the one side, we are part of the corporate sector, we are more modern, we want equality, we want no discrimination, we are faced with traditional society, which requires different kinds of policy intervention to make sure that you take what is there, go inside, subvert it from within. Now if you want to bring about change, you should have a guerrilla tactics. If you have a frontal assault, there'll be resistance. You can't fight the battle. But if you get inside and do the small, small changes that are required over a period of time, the small changes implies much, much more. In Saudi Arabia, women have got educated because of families sending the women. Now they're fighting for the rights to drive car. They're fighting. They'll bring about change in a very traditional theocracy. It's a remarkable thing that's happening in Saudi Arabia. And the women are so courageous. They're fighting against the religious police. They're getting beaten up, but they're standing up and fighting. And they're using technology to do all that. So you need this kind of policy intervention to do. So you must follow a policy group. You must support state policies. You must study state policies. Then you must go meet people, political leaders, and talk to them and say, we need this kind of policies. In BPAC, we are working on a program for women's safety in the city of Bangalore. We're very concerned about women's safety. We want women to freely walk in the streets at a time of their choosing, in the place of their choosing, without getting scared. And any harm to women is a blot on our cultic conscience. And one thing we want to promote is 5,000 Gulabi autos. That movie, Gulabi, what is the Gulabi gang? It's a remarkable movie. You got this woman beating up that gunda. It's so heartening. So we want this 5,000 Gulabi autos. We want the police commissioner to give them, no, who will protect this woman at 9 o'clock? I said, what do you mean who will protect? You are supposed to protect them. It's shocking. Then he went to the minister, we already given them, we gave 8,000. Then I told him, in the name of women, 8,000 licenses have been taken by their husbands, and they lease them out, they're making money. Women don't even know, their name is there. It's a name lender, but they don't know. We said, illa, yen maradu. We said, look, come out with the policy for Gulabi autos, there'll be pink autos, specially painted. Only women will drive. If a man drive, you should be arrested and put in jail. And we'll talk to the Mahila Bank to give money to this woman. We'll work with Aruna to train this woman to do many things. And working with a person called Anil Shetty for Peace Auto. He's got something called Peace Auto. He's doing a great job to create this. Imagine 5,000 women auto rickshaw drivers in Bangalore. Imagine 2,000 taxi drivers who are women. Doesn't it enhance your confidence? Right? You go about the city. It's not that you want to go, but you feel safer. It's perfectly right. I will go in a woman's auto. I'll probably feel safer too. Because the reason is not safer thing, but I don't have to quarrel with that idiot there, and he will charge me more, and I'll lose my temper, I'll fight with him and spoil my mood. At least, hopefully, women will not will charge you the fare that is in the meter. So we need policies like this. So we are going to do this. And next, we must talk to hotels. Now, young women travel. They live in the hotels. And we had a problem in Infosys. Because we had a diktat that you must not land in the airport after 6 o'clock, you must take only this flight. We put a lot of restrictions. I don't know whether it's there, because you said they have to go take a taxi. We don't want anything to happen to them. They shouldn't be stranded in the airport at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So if you have women taxi drivers, you have some safety. You can go to hotel, and in hotel, we want the hotel to take care and become very gender sensitive. Because I heard many women business leaders who were petrified of the knock on the door wrongly at midnight when they're staying in the hotel room. Because in a hotel, some guy gets drunk, he knocks on some rooms, shuffles the key or somewhere, and you get petrified, right? I mean, you get scared. It's very natural. I mean, it happens to me. I will also get scared. Who's trying to break in? So I think the hotels. So there are many, many things, and the only thing that can come out is getting women into workforce. So I just want to end here by saying that you must expand as leaders your area of operation into many things, creating loan models, creating angel funds, developing entrepreneurship, working on policy issues, and spend 15-20% of the time on all these issues for different states of society. So in the next 10 years, we can change many, many things. So thank you for inviting me. It's wonderful to talk to you. And if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer them. Thank you very much. Yeah. Please, go ahead. Yes.
Hi, I'm Ashwini. I just wanted to, tell you that how do you address women in the garment industry? It's like, what have you done, as of now?
No, I've not done anything because I don't know about it. But I think, we need to talk to people about women in the garment industry, because they're the extremely large number of the workforce is women.
Yeah.
But fortunately in Bangalore, there is excess demand. So I don't know how bad it is, but there's excess demand. They're not able to get workers alone.
Yeah, because, in IT companies, we at least have policy something to address. But in garment industry, it's like...
Yeah, that's why, look, you must spend 20% of your time on such issues instead of asking me. No, I'm really saying, really. You must talk to those women, ask them what happens, meet them once in a while. How many of you have been to a jail? Go see those women in the jail. It's pathetic. Many of them are staying in jail as under trials much longer than the crime for which they're picked up. There is no justice. In fact, I worked with Amnesty International to work on a project to find out how many women are there. So you need to come out of your comfort zone and participate and take up some few causes and work on that to make it better. You understand?
Sure.
Yeah. Yes.
Work, we educate them. They get their graduation, BA or BCom. Some girls, they do their post-graduation also. After that, what next? Many people, they want to start business. But I'm interested in knowing what is this angel fund?
See, angel fund is a fund where many, many people come together as investors, and which fund you give as an equity investment in small enterprises started by women. So you must start that. So meet a lot of people, and all of you should contribute, I hope. Put a little bit of your money there as investors. Create a kitty of 2 crores, 4 crores. All right? Then invite applications for women who want to start an enterprise. Sit down, look at the business plan, talk to them and see what they can do, whether they've been successful with the demand, mentor them, and teach them how to do business. Take a 45-day course, and then give them a little bit of money, and ask them to come every month and report to you, talk to you, and give them some confidence. That's how to create entrepreneurs. Because there's a problem, my wife is running an NGO of her own now, somewhere in Mysore, and she tells me that she's doing something green, stitching bags for the international airport, and she's got some 3,000 women working. It's a very large number. And she's saying, I want jobs in the village, do something for the jobs. She said, what can I do? No, set up a BPO. I said, you can't do that. They all want jobs. They're all of them educated. They got a degree. They have no job. They're doing some stitching and making some bags, earning 3,000 rupees. But they all are, frustrated. They all are upset. They want jobs. They want some economic activity to do. And we don't know what to do. So that's why, hopefully, we've got to create an entrepreneurial system and many things to do. Young girls are extremely frustrated, lack of economic opportunities. Because they're not mobile. The parents will not allow them to travel. They can't go out and they can't do it. We had a concept of women hostels earlier. They're all gone to seed. Why don't you have women entrepreneurs who will come up and set up a women's hostel? There's so many young girls who come in the IT industry, Aruna. I don't know where they stay. They stay at paying guests all over the place. Many of them get harassed. Many of them are, living in dire circumstances. They tolerate so much of stuff. So there are great opportunities in many parts to do business. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, somebody there. Yeah, yes, sir.
But I keep, listening Rahul Gandhi keep saying about, women empowerment. Since I have also seen you on many occasions on debates on politics and all that, I thought I could ask you this question. How serious is he? Has he got any policy sort of drawn up from your
They're
knowledge?
not serious.
Sorry?
They're not serious.
Thank you. You
They
answered
say
my-
that woman empowerment because it sounds very nice, because you got to talk about women, you got to talk about Dalits, you got to talk about cattle, they're all in the same, So you got to talk about it, so they're not serious.
Thank you.
See, they will become serious when you have a lobby. Please understand, democracy is a system of competitive lobbies. So you have to come together as working women, have a strong organization, have a strong lobby, make a charter of demands, and give it to the government and to Rahul Gandhi and to Narendra Modi or whoever it is, and tell them we want this. Please implement that, and every quarter release a report. Create public opinion, because you're all voters and you matter a lot. In BPAC, we created a program called Be Safe. So we got some 15 women, extremely accomplished women. And we, in the next 2 years, we're going to change human safety. We gone and met the chief minister. We've given him a letter saying these things we want. He announced fast-track courts to try some women cases, some 10 fast-track courts. We gone to the police commissioner. We told him many things. He said, yes, he'll do it. We're gone there again. We're going more. It's a hard job, but we have to do that. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Pai.
No,
I'm
please sit
Dr.
down, please sit
Sangeeta. I run an NGO, and we work for prevention of child sexual abuse and gender empowerment. I agreed with everything that you said, except of course when Mayawati's a few values here and there. But something that I wanted to add to when you said about the auto drivers, and the government said, who will protect them? And you said, why? The government should protect them, or we should protect them. What we try to teach young girls, especially young girls, is that they have enough strength in their bodies to protect themselves.
Gulabi gang, see that. Show them all
Yes.
this movie.
Yes, and they have enough
And then they
strength.
use that pepper spray in parliament, so,
Yes.
it works.
Yeah. But currently what's happening is that our girls are anemic. They don't eat enough because they will put on weight. They don't stand in the sun because they will become dark, and they don't have enough vitamin
Oh my
D.
God.
They are osteoporotic. They don't eat enough proteins because then they will get muscles. We have 8th standard girls telling us, ma'am, I've got muscles, ma'am.
Muscles.
It's like muscles. I've developed my muscles, which is bad. I should be like that Barbie doll, which is being perpetuated by the media and everything. So we need to encourage women to develop strength in their bodies and their spirit. They have it, but it's been lost somewhere. We need to get it
Mayawati,
back.
she'll beat anybody up. I'll tell you, I know this problem because I think the role models have become different. That's why you need quite good role model. Talk to Prasad Biddappa. You're in Bangalore?
Yes.
Talk to Prasad Biddappa. Then when he does his fashion shows, he must have different kind of women.
Yes.
Women who are normal.
Yes. Normal women.
Who are
Yes.
normal. I mean,
Yes.
not,
Yeah.
who are whatever size it is. Women who are normal and women who got muscle.
Yeah.
Because they're like Michelle Obama has got good muscle. I mean,
Yes,
she's
yes.
trim.
She
Nothing
is,
wrong in it.
yeah.
She's very healthy.
Healthy
We need healthy
and strong.
muscles.
Yeah.
So you got to tell him that, look, don't perpetuate this sad thing. I know him very well. I could also talk to him. You talk to him, I'll also talk to him.
Yes.
And tell him you have these women there and put them on the ramp and show them as role models. So nothing to be ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed with the way you are. I'm very happy the way I am. If you don't like me, that's too bad for you. So I think we should tell these young girls that, be what you are. The world is big enough for you.
And there's a rowdy turned social reformer in a way, Ashwin Mohan. He was a rowdy. And now what he does is he teaches personal safety, especially to women. He will teach you various ways of handling assault and this and that. Yeah, self-defense.
Yeah, okay.
The more to women than anybody else. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, anybody else? Yes, you wanted a question, right? Gentleman here. Yeah, you wanted a question?
Something with you.
Yeah.
One thing was ISB Hyderabad had a program for Indian women entrepreneurs supported by Goldman Sachs. They had 10,000 women entrepreneur
10,000. How did it
programs.
work?
It worked quite well because I've been associated with that for the last 5 years.
Excellent.
And in India, they have trained about 1,500 women entrepreneurs. It's a 3-week program. Of course, the cost was borne by
Yeah, but
Goldman Sachs.
make them role models, talk about
Yes.
it, show them in public, put
Yes.
their names out. Don't we keep it a well-kept secret?
Yeah, no, it is.
I know it's a global program, I know about it.
It's a global program, yeah.
But I
It's
want
a-
it visible.
10,000 women entrepreneurs were trained all over the world, and out of that, 1,500 were in India. I was associated, fortunately, with them for last 5 years in some capacities, and
Excellent.
it worked very
Aruna?
well.
You were asking something? Please. Yeah. On 8th, we are all marching for women's safety from Mahatma Gandhi statue right up to Freedom Park. Kiran Mazumdar Shah is coming, Revati is coming, Aruna is coming. They are all leaders. So if you are free, please come and join our group. I mean, BPAC will offer you a platform, and we will meet the political leaders and talk to them and tell them. And fortunately, our leader is a woman. Kiran Mazumdar Shah is a woman, and Revati is the managing trustee, and we got some wonderful women there who are running the whole show. Aruna is part of it. It's a very open platform. Yeah, anybody else?
Any further questions?
So, I want to end by saying, please do something, all right? Coming, talking, discussing, benchmarking is fantastic. But please do something, all right? Thank you. Bye-bye.